In this session, we will be discussing about message queues and pipes. Previous session, we had discussed what IPC shared memory is and also what signal is. So in the last session, when we discussed about shared memory, we said that there is a common memory that is associated. Okay. Now, one of the advantage of a shared memory is ease of access because whenever a process is created, it is associated with, if at all there is a shared memory that is used by another process that is associated with the shared memory. Okay, so whenever the particular process wants to access that particular memory, it will access that. But the problem is if another process is also using it and that memory value changes, so naturally there can be a problem. Okay, so that is one problem which occurs when a shared memory concept occurs because it is not controlled by anyone for ease of access. Okay, so now when you talk about message queue, now we will think, okay, we already have a shared memory. Then why do we need a message queue? Okay, now there are different reasons why you need a message queue. Okay, so first one reason is uh, to provide inter-task data communication, kernels provide message queue and also message management, queue management. Okay, now it has different benefits. Say first benefit is like, so once the message is received by a process, it may not be available for any other process. Whereas in the shared memory, data is available for multiple processes. Okay. Okay, understood. That is, see, once a message has been completed, okay, it is removed from the memory. But in the case of shared memory, that data is always available for any other processes to be accessed. Also, we can communicate in smaller message formats using message queues. And this particular shared memory, what happens? There is no synchronization. Okay, we had discussed a shared memory can be accessed by any process which is associated with the shared memory. But the problem is there is no synchronization. So naturally, to provide synchronization, when multiple processes are communicating at the same time, who is accessing the shared memory? So naturally, there should be synchronization because data can change. Also, if there is a frequency of reading and writing in the shared memory is very high, then naturally it is very complex to implement this particular functionality. So naturally, there should be a controlling mechanism. Also, if you want to vary the size of the data, data is sent in the form of packets. You say a process A will be communicating to process B in terms of maybe 2 packets, or another process B will be communicating with the D in the form of 10 packets. So naturally, if you need to have a varying size of packets, so you should have a method. So that is where the message queue comes into the. So communication using the message queue. When a message queue is created, so these are the components that can occur. Say similar to your process control block, here you have certain parameters that are created. So first one is there is a queue control block, okay, for each message queue. So in which message queue it is, that associated queue control block. Also, it has a message queue name. Then there is a unique ID for the message. Also, the associated buffers memory that is associated with this particular message. And also there is a length. Okay, what is the length of this particular message queue? Also, what is the maximum length that it can be? And also task waiting lists. Okay, so there are tasks which are waiting to be sent to the queue and tasks which are under execution. Okay. So tasks which are under execution. So these are the different components that are present in a message queue. So this is how the message queue component will look like. You have a queue control block. Also, there is a memory which is associated with this particular message queue only. Okay. Then you can see this is the message. You have a queue length, and there is one entry point and there is one exiting point. Okay. You can see a sending task waiting list, that is which are to be associated or entered into this particular message queue, but they are waiting to be sent to. Okay. So they do not have an ID created. Okay. They are waiting to be in the queue. So once the queue is empty or one message is completed and it is going to the receiving task waiting list, another queue from the sending waiting task enters into this particular queue. Okay. So this is the overall view of the message queue components. So talking about the different states in which a message queue goes in, you have an empty state, you have a not empty, and you have a full. Okay. So depending upon the length that is specified for the message queue, once it is created, okay, you have these different states. Say the size is 5, okay, and you don't have any messages inside that is waiting to be executed. So you will have the empty state. Then at that time, your size or count will be shown as 5. So then once each messages enters into, okay, when one message is in the queue, so naturally you have 4 other messages that can be queued up. So naturally it will go to it is not empty now because you have one message. So it will go to the not empty stage. Okay, it will now go to the not empty state, but it is not full also. Okay, so imagine that you have 5 messages already in the queue. So naturally that is the full length of the queue. So it goes to the full state. So it will be in the full state unless and until this particular messages, one message is executed. So once a message is delivered, so naturally one message will be removed from the queue. So it will go from the full state to the empty state. So that is how the message state is going to work. So the contents in the message queue can be related ones or unrelated ones. Say example for a temperature value of a sensor, a text message that is to be printed to an LCD. So all these are of different varying length and all. Okay. So, but say there can be a particular fixed length. Say if you are sending a text message to print into an LCD, but the character size is more than the queue length. What we can do is it is going to overcome the limit, right? So naturally, what we can do is we can assign a pointer to that particular data, and that pointer value can be sent into the queue. Okay. Now these are the functions. So almost similar functions will be present for each of the interprocess communications. Only thing is, see, depending on the type of operating system that you use and the type of system that you use, the function names can vary, but almost all the functionalities will be same. Okay, you will create a function. Now usually these blocks are, it can be posted to the front and also to the back. Okay. So you will have different pointers, queue front and queue back. So now always in most of the cases, the messages are, there is only one way to entry and there is only one way to exit. Okay. So whenever a new message comes, it is always used by the queue back pointer to post it to the back of the queue. And whenever a message is taken, the queue front pointer will be pointing to the top of the message, and the message that has come first will be taken. So almost like a first in, first out. Okay, FIFO. Then OSQ pend. OSQ pend is used by tasks to wait for the message queue. Okay, it waits for the message queue to be not empty, so that it has to be accepted. Okay, OSQ accept, it is ready for the present queue front pointer to accept that particular message that is at front. Okay, then queue flush, if at all you need to you need to read the queue from front to back and then delete the queue block, you will use the OSQ flush function. Okay, OSQ query indicates it returns the size of the queue. If you want to understand how many messages are present in the queue, what is the status, okay, what is the size of the queue, you will use the OSQ query function. So it reads the queue, but it does not delete it like your OSQ flush. Now OSQ post front, say you have any high priority task waiting to access the shared memory, naturally you will have to send a message using the OSQ front function so that it accesses the OSQ star queue front pointer to post it to the front of the queue. Okay, so that is related to message queues. We're talking about pipes. As the name suggests, sounds, it is almost similar to how a pipe is. It is unidirectional. There is one way for entry and one way for exit. Now it is actually a set of storage locations, but it is big enough to hold a data item that is of user defined byte length. Okay. Also, you can set the configuration time. You can set the size of the pipe at the configuration time. Now, but the main thing that we have to see is pipe communication is mainly for two processes or more processes that are interrelated. Say like you have a parent process and from that you have a child process. And this child process can have another process that is originating from it, maybe known as the grandchild. Okay. So if at all a communication is to be established between these, you will be using a pipe. Okay. So communication is achieved by one process writing into a pipe and other, it is reading from a pipe. Okay. So to achieve the pipe system call, we have to create two files. So one, what it does is it writes to the file and another it reads to the file. Okay. So it can be, see, this particular scenario is almost similar to, you are filling water with a pipe, say into a bucket, and someone is, taking, using the water using a mug. Okay. So the filling process is nothing but, writing into the pipe or retrieving data from the pipe is important. Okay. So you have different functions known as create, connect, and delete. So this is how a pipe is going to look. Okay. So you have a task or interrupt service routine that is waiting to write the data into the pipe. Okay. So there is a descriptor for that, and the data is actually maintained inside the pipe unless and until it is read. So once it is read from the pipe, it is removed from the pipe. Okay. So that is how it looks like. So similar to the message queue, you have a function to write fwrite. Now fwrite will usually this is similar to the message queue, so naturally it will be entered at the back of the back of the pipe using the pointer which is shown by star p back. Okay, the pointer name can vary. Okay, one example is star p back. And you have fread. Fread will be reading from the front of the pipe using the pointer address star p front. Okay. So these are the different functions that can be present. Pipe dev create is used to create a pipe. Okay, it is used to create a pipe or a device. And open the sense to open that particular device. starting from the beginning. Okay. Connect is you're going to insert bytes from your thread into the pipe. Then writing is inserting data into the pipe from the bottom. Then reading is you are reading from the top of the pipe, and closing is you are going to close the device and remove the associated pipe data that is inside. Now, pipe dev error, it indicates if there is any error occurred and corresponding exceptions will be handled. Okay. So these are the different functions that is present in pipe. So this is how the pipe working is. Say you have a different, we had already discussed, you need to have two files. One is to write to pipe and one is to read to pipe. So this is how you have a task A, which is entering multiple messages. You can see M1, M2, and M3. So that is entered in the order M1 first, M2 second, like that. Okay. Then it is read by another task. It reads M1 first, M2 second, and M3 third in the order that it is entered. Okay. So with this, I stop the session for pipes and message queues.